quiet winter kitchen holds a small, curled bark of comforting warmth. Yet this fragile spice hides a deeply violent past. The sweet aroma fades away into the deep shadows of time, where ancient empires crumbled and oceans bled for a mere fleeting taste. The story begins in the lush, untouched forests of ancient Ceylon, a hidden paradise veiled in dense mist and whispering emerald leaves. Before the greedy hands of men arrived, this sacred tree stood silently shedding its fragrant skin beneath the humid, tropical canopy. Nature nurtured this botanical treasure in absolute secrecy, guarding the delicate inner bark that would soon become more valuable than heavy gold. To extract the hidden sweetness requires tearing away the protective armor, exposing the fragile, bleeding heart of the precious wood beneath. The early guardians of the forest moved like silent ghosts, harvesting the curling bark with deep reverence for the spirits of nature. Left under the blazing tropical sun, the bleeding bark slowly tightens, rolling itself into perfect, fragile scrolls of intoxicating, earthly perfume. An ocean of golden scrolls rested upon woven mats in the wilderness, waiting to be carried across scorching deserts and treacherous roaring seas. Every single piece was handled with absolute devotion and quiet care, for they were destined to grace the magnificent altars of distant gods. Soon, these humble fragments of the deep jungle began their long journey, carried on the weary backs of nameless wanderers through unforgiving lands. Hidden away inside coarse woven sacks, the secret fragrance remained trapped, waiting to ignite the ferocious greed of the expanding, civilized world. The peaceful jungle rivers finally spilled into the vast and turbulent ocean, where the delicate bark would meet the brutal forces of commerce. A few golden crumbs tumbled into the dark, churning coastal mud, an eerie omen of the massive bloodshed that would inevitably follow. The horizon darkened with the approaching sails of foreign merchant vessels, bringing elaborate lies and an insatiable hunger for the bleeding sweet bark. High above the scorching ancient sands, a fierce legendary creature silently guarded the priceless, fragrant gold. Arab merchants spun brilliant, deceitful tales, telling of giant mythical birds weaving nests from the very sticks of sweet cinnamon. No human hand could ever reach those perilous, towering stone peaks above, where the precious nests rested. To steal the sweet, fragrant bark, they left massive chunks of bloody meat scattered across the unforgiving, dry rocks. The colossal beasts would swoop down, carrying the incredibly heavy, bloody burden up to their fragile, woven highland homes. The sheer weight of the flesh shattered the delicate, golden woven structure, sending the fragrant sticks tumbling helplessly down. A shower of pure, earthly treasure rained down upon the waiting merchants, who swiftly gathered the fallen sweet prizes. They collected every single precious piece, guarding the brilliant mythological commercial secret to keep the eager Western world blind. Through elaborate tales and whispered lies, a magnificent, invisible, absolute trading monopoly was forged deeply across the ancient world. The Romans and wealthy Greeks trading their heaviest, shining golden coins for the mythical, fragrant flesh of birds. Emperors burned the impossibly rare spice, seeking the divine, eternal, immortal favor, while endlessly enriching the clever desert storytellers. The beautiful, swirling smoke masked everything, hiding the true, quiet, earthly origins behind a veil of glorious, absolute fiction. For centuries, the brilliant illusion held, blinding the greatest seeking Western minds, until a violent new hunger finally awoke. An undeniable thirst for absolute truth began to turn heavy iron compasses towards the deep, uncharted, mysterious Eastern oceans. The charming ancient mythological tales ended, replaced by brutal, heavy iron cannons and the unforgiving, harsh reality of conquest. The vast, restless ocean stretched infinitely, hiding a brutal incoming storm of conquest beneath its beautiful blue waves. Heavy brass dividers marched across parchment, charting a bloody, inevitable path toward dominance over the hidden, fragrant lands. Massive wooden galleons shattered the waves, carrying heavily armed men driven by greed towards the distant, quiet islands. Rough, salted hands gripped the wheel, steering the massive, hungry wooden war machine through the dangerous, roaring tides. Portuguese sails billowed in the wind, bearing the heavy cross of divine right across the uncharted, deep waters. A rusted iron spyglass extended outward, searching the endless misty horizon for treasure, hidden within the ancient forests. The beautiful island of Ceylon waited, completely unaware of the approaching violent storm, gathering upon the salty horizon. Deep inside the dark wooden hulls, heavy rusted iron cannons sat patiently waiting for the command to fire. The wind carried a sweet scent, drawing the ruthless foreign conquerors ever closer to the legendary golden bark. A single drop of salty sweat fell heavily upon the intricate paper map, staining the fragile drawn borders. Anchors plunged into the coral reefs, shattering the ancient peace of the ocean with a deafening, violent roar. Thick, coarse hemp ropes pulled tight, securing the devastating arrival of the Empire upon the pristine, untouched shores. Heavily armored boots struck the sand, crushing the delicate seashells into dust. Under the weight of greed, a sharp steel sword was drawn, catching the brilliant tropical sunlight very briefly, before casting a dark shadow. The absolute silence of the jungle was finally broken by a deafening gunshot, signaling a terrifying new era. The Portuguese fortresses started to rise, casting a dark, heavy shadow of dominance over the spice lands. Rough stone blocks were rapidly stacked, sealing the beautiful, wild, untamed, fragrant island within cold, foreign walls. A brutal military occupation quickly began, tearing the ancient, peaceful jungle society apart for the golden harvest. Heavy musket barrels slowly cooled down, leaving a bitter, lingering scent of gunpowder in the tropical air. Forced native laborers carried heavy burdens, hauling the precious, bleeding bark of cinnamon under the blazing sun. Calloused, aching hands stripped the branches, fueling a massive, glowing, violent global economy with their quiet suffering. Massive wooden storehouses filled the coast, hoarding the magnificent, fragrant wealth of nature to feed European greed. A rusted iron key turned slowly, locking away the most precious, sweet treasure from its own people. Heavily armed galleons departed the island, carrying the deep, blood-stained cargo of flavor across the dark oceans. Black, deadly gunpowder spilled onto wood, marking a violent, brutal era of trade in the Eastern world. Local kings were brutally, completely subdued, losing their sacred, ancient claim to sovereignty over the aromatic forests. A fragile royal wax seal shattered, surrendering the ultimate total control of cinnamon to the foreign invaders. The wooden cross and iron sword ruled the exotic, beautiful, weeping tropical shores with absolute crushing power. A heavy silver coin changed hands, paying for the quiet, desperate, bloody tears of the fallen empire. The first total absolute monopoly arose, setting the terrifying, brutal stage of exploitation for the next conquerors. The cold, gray harbors of Europe suddenly glowed with immense, unimaginable foreign wealth, imported from the dying islands. Heavy brass merchant scales tipped, weighing fragile bark against heavy solid gold to satisfy endless imperial cravings. Opulent royal banquets boldly displayed the rarest stolen treasures of the world, masking the scent of decay. A fine cloud of spice fell upon the sweetest royal golden pastries, hiding a deeply bitter global truth. Wealthy merchants counted their profits, building magnificent empires upon stolen sacred earth, while distant islanders slowly starved. A sharp ink quill scratched, recording massive fortunes born from quiet suffering inside heavy leather merchant ledgers. The insatiable hunger required more, spawning massive dark fleets of greedy wood across the cold, bustling shipyards. Heavy iron hammers struck fiercely, driving rusted nails deep into bleeding timber, forging chains for the innocent. Invisible lines of absolute power expanded across the vulnerable ancient Eastern Hemisphere, claiming every single fragrant tree. Red sealing wax slowly melted, symbolizing the brutal authority of foreign kings over the distant, silent jungles. Commoners walked the dirty streets, smelling the divine, stolen aroma of paradise drifting from the high windows. Carefully preserved inside ornate glass, the twisted bark sat like holy relics, worshipped by a greedy society. The world banking system thrived, feeding upon the bitter tears of slaves, hiding behind magnificent marble columns. A single heavy gold coin spun, catching the brilliant artificial candlelight beautifully before finally collapsing into darkness. Yet wealth only breeds jealousy, summoning a far more ruthless maritime empire from the cold, shallow seas. The Dutch flags rose, casting a dark, heavy shadow of oppression across the vibrant green island. A wax stamp, pressed, firmly marking every single crate of spice with the greedy VOC brand. Fortified walls stretched out, crushing the ancient spirit of native life under heavy, cold masonry. Rusted iron gears clicked, readying the heavy, deadly cannons for war against the defiant locals. Deep in the forest, tired laborers stripped the precious golden bark for wealthy foreign masters. A sharp blade slipped, cutting into the rough tree-limb flesh, causing a deep wound. Monopoly gripped the island, ensuring all local trade routes were controlled by the Dutch merchants. Heavy brass scales tipped, showing the immense value of stolen cinnamon against the silver coins. The Salagama caste labored, performing the dangerous task of peeling bark beneath the scorching sun. Sweet sweat fell down, staining the beautiful dried scrolls of spice with salty, bitter tears. Inside the governor's office, power was wielded over the entire region through cold, written decrees. A sharp ink quill scratched numbers recording the massive stolen profits into heavy leather books. Enormous ships sailed away, carrying the rich, fragrant cargo to Amsterdam across the endless sea. A final scroll closed, protecting the fragile, curling scent of wood from the damp air. The sun set down, revealing the long, dark shadow of colonization over the spice lands. The deep scars of violent colonization heavily stained the ancient, beautiful eastern soil with innocent red blood. A heavy rusted iron shackle tightened, binding the quiet, desperate, exhausted native workers to the fragrant wood. Massive, endless fields of sacred trees fell endlessly under the brutal iron axes of the foreign masters. The rich golden bark slowly curled, hiding the dark, violent, tragic human cost within its sweet layers. Entire forgotten generations suffered in silence, fueling the massive, booming, greedy global economy with their heavy sweat. A sharp colonial whip violently cracked, striking the exhausted, bare, brown human skin, leaving a bitter mark. Heavily armed colonial guards stood watching, protecting the massive, hoarded, fragrant wooden wealth from the starving villagers. A single drop of crimson blood soaked deeply into the dry, sweet bark, forever staining the harvest. Smoke heavily choked the ancient island, burning the unwanted surplus precious botanical goods to manipulate the market. The intense hot flames consumed everything, destroying the beautiful, sacred, ancient natural gifts for pure economic greed. Massive wooden trading ships constantly departed, leaving behind a deeply broken, weeping paradise, stripped of its soul. Heavy gold coins filled the chests, counting the terrifying, immense, dark, bloody profits of the spice trade. Elegant, grand European cities rapidly expanded, built upon the massive, hidden, dark suffering of the distant East. A delicate porcelain cup gently rested, holding the incredibly expensive, warm, spiced beverage for the ignorant elite. The brutal legacy of absolute monopoly forever altered the beautiful global cultural landscape through violence and flavor. The violent storms of history finally settled, leaving a completely transformed modern global society, forever addicted to flavor. A heavily faded golden royal wax seal marks the quiet, tragic fall of empires, lost to modern time. The abandoned colonial spice plantations slowly decayed, allowing the ancient wild jungle to heal beneath the warm sun. A fresh, green leaf quietly unfurled outward, erasing the bloody footprints of foreign men from the fragrant soil. Massive modern steel ships now cross oceans, carrying the treasured sweet golden bark today to every distant corner. The violent, turbulent history is carefully packaged, concealing the dark suffering of past generations inside a glass bottle. The glowing, cinematic, microscopic fibers slowly fade, pulling the vision back to the present, away from the past. The rough, violent, ancient landscape morphs rapidly, becoming a familiar, beautiful, quiet, wooden quill resting in warm cider. A perfectly ordinary winter kitchen appears again, offering a very peaceful and comforting silence after the historical storm. Soft, gentle golden light illuminates the glass, revealing the intricate, tight curls of bark floating in the liquid. A warm mug of aromatic sweet cider sits on the quiet, rustic wooden table, waiting to be tasted. Fragrant white steam dances elegantly upward, endlessly, releasing a deeply rich, warm, sweet aroma into the chilly air. Outside the frosted window, snowflakes fall gently, creating a perfect, peaceful, white winter wonderland, completely devoid of violence. We easily forget the immense, heavy cost hidden inside this tiny, beautiful, sweet bark, resting peacefully right here. Every single delicious flavor carries a ghost, waiting to whisper its quiet, ancient secrets before it gently dissolves.